everybody. Welcome to episode 5 of the Beef and Bitcoin podcast with your hosts, Brett and CH. Today's topics, we're going to cover major indices dumping this past week, along with oil and others. Cypherpunk legend Tim May unfortunately passed away, so that's a very sad day for everybody who's into Bitcoin and crypto. And then lastly, the deplatforming from Patreon and why exactly that benefits Bitcoin. So these are 3 topics we really want to jump into today. But first things first, man. How you doing this week?
I'm doing good. It's been a very interesting week. Legacy markets are going crazy. You guys should be seeing, if you're watching the video on YouTube, the oil chart. Yeah, we have, since the shooting star candle, basically, we have dumped from 78 basically at the peak, and I'll just show you how this is ridiculous. I think it's like we're down 45% oil. 40% in the span of, less than 2 months, 2 months, which is absolutely insane. So, I mean, upside's gas prices will be cheaper. I mean, that's the way to look at it, is gas prices will be cheaper, but apparently it's screwed with all the inflation indexes and indices or whatever, because like inflation's really, like, they base it off things like gas prices and stuff like that, and obviously gas prices just plummeted. So
Right. Gas prices are a part of that consumer price index, that
yeah,
basket of
the CPI.
goods, I guess.
Yeah, that's
Hmm.
basically what it is. So like they're like, oh, and even though other things have become more expensive, one of the things I notice is I drink like Monster Energy drinks occasionally, and they used to have 2 for $4. You could cop it at a gas station, at CVS, and now it was like 2 for $5, and I was just like, oh, inflation's just, it's striking everywhere you look. And I remember there's some reports earlier this year about other materials or businesses reporting, like copper, aluminum, they had to raise prices on products, in industrial goods and stuff like that.
Yeah, I mean, that sounds like a 20% increase on your cost of Monster Energy drink.
It is, that's what it is. Monster Energy drinks is, the margins are getting too tight there. I also have, you can see my screen, I have the Spider Select Energy Fund. So this is the ETF, and as you can see, it's basically about to touch the trend line here, and God knows what happens there. If you see the guy Paranoid Bull on Twitter, he mentions like commodity super cycle, and talks about the oil, and the commodity peak in 2011, 2012, 2013, and now we're coming back down. You're talking about gold, silver, and he made a very valid point. I was reading about, we had, pricing wise, whether it's gold, silver, everything's priced in the dollar. So we really have no clue, including Bitcoin. We really have no clue what is a fair value of it, because we only know the nominal value, not the real value. So that's something, it's a weird thought, but in our money is completely a belief-based currency. But and that's with every money. It's belief, because gold's just a metal at the end of the day. But still, it has value because it's a hard asset. Um, it's going to be very interesting to see how this pans out in the next few years. I mean, we're watching Europe basically collapse right now. I mean, it's not being televised that much, but a lot of riots going on over there, especially in France.
Yeah, it's yellow vest
Yeah,
fever over there.
seriously. So I didn't realize, like, that's required by law. You have to have yellow vest in your vehicle. So that's why I was trying to figure out, where are these people getting all these?
Yeah, that's a good question. I figured Amazon would have ran out of stock of those yellow
Yeah,
vests with all
seriously.
those ones they're sending over there.
Oh, so the other day I still have it up, like the Wells Fargo. They posted something like, God, I have it. If you can see my screen, like original target was like end of the year target, which is now 3 full trading days and 2 half trading days left, so 4 days basically of trading. From original target slash at 30.79 is now brought down to 26.47. I mean, if we had a short squeeze, maybe, but things aren't looking too optimistic right now, to say the least.
It's funny when analysts give you their revised forecast, that really just means they were wrong on their previous forecast, but revised sounds much better than incorrect, is what I wanted to say.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. It's one of those things where, like, even you look at the weekly chart, and you can see my screen. It just, like, that doesn't look good. Like, there's no way around that. And like, there's the first real support isn't till like 2000 or 2100 basically. So it's a long ways. And then like when you zoom out to the monthly bars, it's just like it gets worse when you realize just how much we fell in December so far. And then the quarterly bar is what's really scary. You're just yeah.
Yeah, so let's talk about that a little bit more. So, not to jump too into the technical analysis here,
Yeah.
but from a macro level, when we're looking at the S&P 500 quarterly bars and we're seeing, in my opinion, it looks like it's the longest quarterly bar
Ever.
I've ever seen to the downside.
It's
So,
it's worse than
like,
'08 candles. I mean, the '08 ones are close, but still, we have. I mean, granted,
right,
there's still okay. There's still 5 days left, so we could bounce, say theoretically back to 2600, maybe. But there, I don't like nothing looks good here. I mean, the only thing
right.
it'd be is a short squeeze here. Like you know, I trade off price action, but I just opened up RSI where we oversold. So I mean, you could say oversold, but you just look at the MACD and how ripped open that is. It's just so ripped open. It's I okay, we might bounce, but I don't think so.
Right.
I mean, there's nothing that even compares to this bar.
Right. So when we
um,
look at that quarterly bar
yeah,
and we say, okay, the first support might be those 2015 levels, but
yeah,
once you get below that, you're looking at the highs of 2007 or
yeah. No, that's where
the next points of support.
yeah,
So,
next real support.
how bad do you think this could potentially get? I mean, to me, I don't think we'll stop at 2015 levels at all. I mean,
Yeah, no. So my thoughts are, yeah, no, that's gonna probably get blown out. I mean, that's just so much selling. So a good way to think of this, think about how many pensions, institutions, endowments, large funds have to unwind. They have to unwind. They have to sell. They're, whether they're down, this and that. That's a big issue. So you got to think about all those people have to sell. A lot of people are way too long in this market. So that's just going to make selling worse. Yeah, so I opened the volume profile to kind of show, where volume is, and that just shows what the price levels it was bought at, and like you can see here, like okay, 2091, that's an area I'm looking for to bounce, but that's like you can see that's like the next area. That's I think we could finish the year as a yearly engulfing bar, which is pretty scary, and I'll show you what I mean. We're really not that far. It's a complete, false breakout to the top side, and so basically 20, I think 2243, 2242 is the number. We get down to there, we close out down there. That's an engulfing bar in the yearly candle. My bet would be is 800 on this S&P at that point, or go down to that region. I mean, that's there's a lot of unwinding to do, and I think even like when you think about the private markets, Uber and Lyft are trying to do IPOs now because they realize their time is coming to a close here very shortly if they don't, get more liquid. People want to get out. There's big positions in those, investments or that are private that want to liquidate, and you're seeing public companies valuations get halved. Nvidia, AMD have cut off 50% both in the matter of months. So they're just flinging all around. You look at Apple. Apple shed 33%. So it's I'm thinking best case scenario is the 2000, okay, somewhere around here, 1400. That's a lot of points still. That's halving. I, I most likely think we're gonna go to the 800 area though. That's just looking at that candle, and then that's just so much selling, dude. That is so much selling.
yeah.
I
And this
mean,
could take time. I mean,
yeah, no,
we could see this play out until,
yeah. I mean, it's a long, they talk about like the 1929 bear market and how, it didn't reach the bottom to like 31, and in between there was a lot of bouncing around.
hmm
Like, I can go back there. We're going back there. So like you can see on your screen, I'm going back to monthly bars, so it's a little more, but I mean, it's pretty crazy. I mean, look at that. It's not as visible, but still, that's the 1929 pattern. And let's see, let's just like peak to trough. I mean, that's brutal. So that's peak to trough is 84%. And that's says 1,600 days. So I mean that's like
Mm,
4 years
yeah.
basically. I mean so that's
And if we're
okay.
yeah,
It
if
might be
we're
a
at the
little less than
beginning
four
of
years,
this,
but three,
yeah.
yeah, it's a long time, and you can see like there's bouncing, you know, around. It's not one straight line, but you can see we've just sold off so much in this past um, months. Really October. I mean, the sell-off started in 2018. You can't. Everything peaked in early 2018, late 2017. Basically, all markets did. I mean, certain U.S. equities pushed along, but a lot of U.S. equities did peak then. And then you look at global markets, emerging markets, China, Europe. Those things either peaked prior or peaked at 2018. And then obviously crypto. Crypto peaked in 20, first 3 days of 2018.
Yeah, it's not a surprise that everything although I don't know how correlated, crypto markets are with the traditional markets, but it is interesting to see them both take a hurting in 2018.
Oh yeah, no, it's we've obviously rallied a little bit lately. There's no doubt around it. And like what I like looking at is the 3 day on Bitcoin. Um, there is what you could consider a engulfing bar on the 3 day. I don't know how well they'll play out, but if this is a place to bottom, I think it's here.
Hmm.
I mean, it's a pretty powerful weekly candle. I mean, we just got to close up higher, basically. Um, really, here it's. I think that the level is really if we can break 4,400 area, that would be huge. And if we break 4,400, I imagine we'll easily go to 55, and then 6K is the next big really area. That's whatever it is, 6.5.
Yep.
That
Yeah, and that'll be interesting, especially, today is Sunday, December 23rd, so we're
yeah,
2 days before Christmas.
yeah.
It will be interesting to see if more or less people will be logging on to Bittrex, Bitfinex, Binance, and during their time off and taking a position.
There's like no, see how little people bought at the top and sold.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Like, and then like obviously 6,000 is just a giant wall, or 6,400. So I mean, if we can break through 4,400, then really I think we're going to be easily at 5,500 will be an area. But then really it's just giant wall at 6,400. It'll be interesting. I have no clue how this will play out. We've never seen something like this. Like we're seeing the end of a giant cycle. Everyone's over leveraged, way too much debt. And then like the Deutsche Bank thing's pretty scary. That's Deutsche Bank has like 64 trillion in derivatives,
Derivatives.
and the world GDP is 78 trillion. And Deutsche Bank, just for reference, let's see if we have it. I might have it pulled up. Oh yes, I do have it pulled up. Deutsche Bank. This is the chart. This is the monthly chart. And I assume they were public before this, but this is just for I think the New York Stock Exchange. But as you can see, like they peaked in '07. They are down like 94%, if not more.
Yeah, I mean that's wrecked. I mean that's the
Yeah.
only way I can really describe
I
that.
couldn't imagine like
Deutsche
bag
Bank
holding that.
absolutely wrecked.
Yeah, I mean, in the past, it's just really just been bleeding here. I mean, it's a one of the things they say was, if you look at the high executive turnover at Deutsche Bank, they know it's a sinking ship. There's a reason board members and C-suite executives are leaving. They know it's a sinking ship. I mean, you don't have to be a rocket scientist to look at this chart and be like, yeah, this thing isn't turning around. And I think you saw that recently, crypto. You saw the Deutsche Bank they were inspected by who was it? There was some German agency. They raided their offices for money laundering.
Yeah, I did hear about that. I did hear about that. And that's one of my favorite things is to to see our favorite and most trusted banking institutions
Mm,
get, a slap on the wrist for, fraud, money laundering, all the things that are happily shilled against Bitcoin, as to why it's such a terrible, terrible thing to be in existence when,
yeah.
the people we trust the most are pretty much the worst offenders in that kind of thing.
Oh yeah. No. It's pretty absurd that it's the HSBC. What was it? 6 years ago, 7 years ago, got in trouble. I think like 2011, 2012, got in trouble for money laundering with like a Mexican drug cartel.
Yep.
They were laundering hundreds of billions of dollars. You know, it was stupid how much money, and they got fined a couple billion, I think. Nobody got in trouble, and then the dude who brought it up, wasn't protected at all. He wasn't able to get a job after. He was obviously fired. The whistleblower was obviously fired, and then wasn't able to get a job anywhere else in the industry. So it's they hold the keys to the gate, is what it is. It's that simple. They control the money. It's that simple, and they can bend the laws.
Yeah, that's a good point because, somebody's favorite excuse is always like, well, they're not doing anything wrong. People would know, people would say something and speak up. No, they wouldn't speak up because every time somebody blows the whistle, they lose their job or potentially go to prison. I mean, look what
Yeah,
happened to Snowden. He blew the whistle and now he is, on the run for his life pretty much at all times,
yeah. No, it's
for fear of extradition back to the U.S. And, whether it's really tough because it's a shame that whistleblowers end up in prison the majority of the time for being good actors in the space.
yeah. No, I agree with that. It's an interesting thing. The world we live in today. As we talked about last time, Bitcoin is one of those red pills. Um, And I think another point about, the last decade really is one thing I noticed is a lot of IPOs, a lot of the big ones. Like here, I have a Spotify chart pulled up. Spotify, I remember watching their IPO happen. It was a big ordeal, and they were obviously the first day they just sold off. People wanted to liquidate their shares. That's why they went public, basically, to get like the people who've been at the company for years, just to get them liquid. And as you can see, it's just setting new lows now. We are in, no-go territory. You know, um, who knows where this is going to find a bottom? It's still valued at, and they're not profitable. It's still valued at $19 billion right now. Um, this is one of many IPOs. And Snap's another great example. Snapchat's at 4.99 now. Broke the $5 barrier. It is a disaster. I mean, this thing basically peaked on IPO and hasn't seen a new high since. And it's just selling off into oblivion. It's now a 6 billion market cap, 6.4. Sonos is another good one. Sonos was really recent too. If you know what that is,
Yeah, it's
it's
tough because I like Sonos. I think they have a good product, but
I've
it's a
used it
shame.
at other people's houses and it works really well. And then my mom has it and it doesn't work at her house. But no, I've used it at other people's places and it works. But this is their chart,
Yeah, I mean, wrecked. And it's
just
funny
literally
because
selling off the whole time.
to tie this back into, talk about IPOs, you can substitute any ICO into this, and
Exactly.
the economics are still the same. If you are not profitable, you will go to zero. And the original investors in these startups, when it was private money funded, they want to IPO so they can dump their bags. I mean, period. That's it. They are
Exactly.
dumping bags. It's the same exact thing as getting a token listed on an exchange. The only reason to do that is so the insiders can then dump their bags right onto retail, thinking they're getting a great deal on the next scooters on the blockchain or whatever dumb fucking idea these coins are trying to do.
Scooter on the blockchain. I love it. That just sums it all up. This is the best one by far, though. Blue Apron's down like 96% now, 94. This is
It's going to be
a
a pink sheet. That's
it
it.
is a
It's
pink
over.
sheet. It's a 65 cents, dude. The past week it dropped 40%. It went from like $1.06 to 66. I was like 65. I've been looking at this chart for a while. I'm thinking, this is gonna keep going low, but I didn't think it would drop this much in a week. It's absolutely insane. And their market
No,
caps, they're $127 million market cap now.
this is just a perfect example of what malinvestment is. I mean,
Exactly.
malinvestment is only possible with cheap money and stupid, unprofitable investments. These VCs have so much cash that they don't know what to do with, that they're deploying it into ideas that will never be profitable. Blue Apron, it's over. It's done. I
Yeah,
mean,
I don't know how this is a
I
big
don't want to
company.
I don't want to hate on the product. Like, it's interesting. It's an interesting idea. Oh, you get your ingredients delivered to you. You can cook your food. Yeah, that's great. But here's the thing: if these businesses aren't profitable, it does not matter. You can continue to pump as much cash as humanly possible into them, and it's still not going to work. Malinvestment at its finest.
I agree. I mean, I just showed you a few charts at least. Um, and it's everything is all these IPOs. GoPro's another one. GoPro's the one of the worst offenders. It's another one that's down like 95% from its high.
Yeah, didn't I remember hearing about the CEO of GoPro? He was like the highest paid CEO
I'm pretty sure he
of
and
any.
somehow
He was paying himself like a ridiculous
he
sum of money
somehow
every year, and it's
he
like, come on,
sold
man.
he sold a shit ton of shares at the top, like because he was gonna donate some or something, and he ended up just keeping a lot of it. Obviously, I mean I'm not arguing because he made a lot of money, good for him. But like he was able to sell a lot of his shares over here at like 90. Yeah, this thing's went from 97. It's $4 and 13 cents now. People realized like here they're like, oh wow, it's just a fucking camera.
Are are you telling me he pulled a Charlie Lee on
Well,
all of his GoPro
you know what?
fans?
Honestly, wait. We can't be angry at Charlie Lee. Why?
That's
Charlie
true.
Lee.
That's a good
You
point.
know what Charlie Lee said, and I can't argue on this. Was he was like, he's like, if you're gonna buy Litecoin here, you better be able to accept Litecoin at 20, $20. And what do you know? Litecoin hits like 25. And
Yeah, he called it.
dude, think about it. He's been in the space for a while. He's like, motherfucker, this isn't gonna last. He's like, yo, I have a fucking coin. That's it. He's like, why wouldn't I just dump this? I don't blame him.
No, it's really hard. It's hard because I have actually met Charlie in person, and he was a nice enough guy, but it's still on one hand I appreciate what he's done for Bitcoin and the space in general, but on the other hand, he's definitely one of my favorite exit scammers because he sold the top so well on pretty much deceiving everybody with the many monies fallacy that, oh, don't worry, Litecoin's going to be the silver to Bitcoin's gold. And yeah, I mean, people definitely fell for that for sure.
I mean, yes, but we still have to remember it was a test bed, so it was, it wasn't like it was completely useless. It did, people did use it for things to test for other Bitcoin, for Bitcoin network and stuff like that. So it did have some use cases in that sense. I'm not saying that its value was any but justified, but hey, the dude knew the valuation wasn't justified, so he sold.
That's true.
I mean,
You
he
can't
sold it
blame
like three.
Charlie.
Okay, he sold it like 330 or 300. He didn't sell at 400. He just was like, this is absurd. He's like, this is not. Think about that, dude. He rode it from like a buck to that. That's like, no, it's not real. That's so much, or less than $1.
And this is a good time to mention that this boom and bust cycle you see with Bitcoin, and every couple of years you see the same blow off top and then an 85+% retracement, and then it does the same thing over and over and over again. So I mean, for you and I, this might be our first round through of watching a bull market come and totally blow up and then crash, and now we're going to see the same thing happen over and over again. So if you're listening to this today and you just got into crypto or Bitcoin in 2017 or 2018, stick with it. You're going to see this pattern repeat itself, and the next time it comes, you won't be um, worrying about capitulating and losing everything.
Yeah, I mean, I just like I have a Bitstamp chart open, and that goes back to like 2012, early 2011, and yeah. I mean, here it is. I mean, even early 2013, it peaked at 250, went back down to 64. That's a huge drop, dude. That's huge.
It's humongous in percentage terms. It's huge.
Yeah. 'Cause I remember seeing, some people post about this was a big deal. And I get why it's a big deal when you zoom out and you're like, whoa, once it breaks out of that former high, it's just kind of on its own. And then that happens.
Yeah, it's free reign to the upside once it starts making new all-time highs. That's
Yeah.
what gets scary about Bitcoin. I mean, I just remember watching in 2017, looking at it at 1800, then 2000, thinking to myself like, oh, how much higher can it realistically go? And then, a few months later, and we're at another 10x, and things just stop making sense. And and I have a few, and like I'm looking forward to the next bull run and everything just as much as the next guy. But it's I think it will make sense when, in hindsight, once we've gone through, I don't know how many more cycles of this we're going to have until we'll have more stability in the market, maybe 2 to 4 more times. And, I couldn't tell you where the tops or bottoms of each one of those bull and bust cycles are going to be. But it's the next time I probably won't believe it the second time again. And the time after that, it's not going to make sense.
Oh yeah, no. I agree with you, and I have the inverted Bitcoin chart. So this is basically the dollar losing value against the Bitcoin. You know, invert it, whatever. Um,
Yeah, I mean, I'm excited for 2019.
it's gonna be
I have a
interesting.
feeling, yeah, it's going to be interesting. I think if we can go sideways, we can build new infrastructure, we can get everything ready for the next wave of new users. Because I don't think the current user base who's involved right now will be excited enough to start jumping in and buying again. I think you're going to need a new wave of
You need a fresh set
investors
of
to come in
buyers.
and get excited, just as I was in 20. Yeah, you need a fresh set of buyers, just as I was in 2017, finding out about this for the first time and jumping down the rabbit hole. You need that new wave of people to come in and jump down the rabbit hole. And I don't know where they're going to come from. I think, depending upon how much development effort goes into certain products or features, they might be brought in from something that doesn't exist yet. I don't know. Maybe if Lightning Network really starts growing in 2019, or new use cases that are only possible by using the Lightning Network comes to fruition, then you'll have a new set of users who might be able to, I don't know, pay for something in Fortnite or whatever that brings in a whole new wave of users, and then we'll see something else come on board. But it's nice to see in this bear market how much activity is going on from the development side.
Yeah, I mean you're more in tune with that than I am, but you definitely see even that little what was that little that node, the little purple and like
Oh
white thing,
yeah, the Casa, the HODL node. Yeah, I
the
mean
hot node. Those look pretty
those are
cool.
shipping like crazy. I think they've delivered a couple hundred of those. You've seen the Lightning Network grow by a substantial amount. I want to say it went from a few hundred BTC on the network to getting close to or over 500 BTC on the network within the span of 3 months. And that was literally just because of the Casa HODL node getting delivered. And now you have Pierre Rochard's node launcher. For any of you Windows users out there, take a look at Pierre Rochard's node launcher. It can get your Bitcoin full node and Lightning node synced and up and running, and pretty quickly. So I would definitely recommend taking a look at that. But the easier it is for people to deploy their own node and control their private keys and get onto the latest and greatest technology is only going to be beneficial. But it takes time. It's not easy for us normies to jump onto the Lightning Network, open up a few channels, and start playing on Lightning. It's not there yet, but it will be very soon.
Yeah, no, it's interesting to see this happen. I think here again things they don't get covered that much in the news. News is very price sensitive with Bitcoin. They don't really care about anything else. At least most of the bigger names. So, I mean, obviously this past week there's probably been more looking to Bitcoin because it's up 10, 12%, maybe more than that, 25%, whatever it is. Um, and the same thing with all the altcoins. Now, here's the thing though. I think any kind of Bitcoin move, you're gonna get the inevitable altcoin move. I think those are still so sensitive to Bitcoin price. That's something that will come along, and we're seeing with Ethereum right now. Ethereum has just ran the past few days from 83 to 138. It's ran up 70% basically in the span of a week. Um, I think,
Pump City.
yeah, no, Pump City is right. I think, and we're seeing this with most altcoins. Yeah, Litecoin went from 22 to 33. That's 35% at least.
Yeah, that's a good point. I see.
50.
I Yeah, that's crazy. You know,
Dude, it's people don't understand why there's a reason why people trade this current people trade crypto. It's because of these type of things.
it's hyper volatile.
Yeah, basically.
Yeah, I don't think we're going to see alts decouple from Bitcoin for another cycle or two. It's
Yeah.
just I don't think enough people have a really good understanding of monetary economics or monetary history to know that money is going to converge onto one thing. So these alts and shitcoins they're going to stick around. They're going to be around until they're not, pretty much. They will continue to pump, and eventually maybe two or three more bull cycles, and then one more bear cycle after that, and they might not come back, or they'll become the equivalent of pink sheets relative to Bitcoin, and that'll be that.
I mean, Bitcoin Cash is up 200% in the past
Yeah,
week.
monster.
Just it's like this is like like the thing about that's the thing about crypto. It's never things will get dull or things will get boring, and all of a sudden something that like this happens. It's pretty funny. And who knows? I mean, if this is really a bottom, that would be very interesting. And that's why I try to tell people like when Bitcoin generally makes big moves, it has to go down first. And
Hmm.
this momentum downwards could propel us upwards. I mean, I could be wrong. I'm just really just speculating hard here. But just from the sheer momentum downwards, if we get some serious momentum upwards, like who knows where, because just because how sensitive things are. You think about last year when we went up like $3,000 in a day at one point. Like,
Hmm.
I mean, it really, that's the current price of Bitcoin is what we went up in a day, basically. Some of these candles in December were absolutely insane, and January. That was just not realistic. Like,
Yeah, it was Bitcoin fantasy land. Yeah,
yeah,
I remember, the very, I don't know if it's popular, but the big pimpin' Jay-Z meme. I remember I dropped that like 3 or 4 times in 1 week in December, and it was just
dude,
like constant. It was
dude,
hysterical that
you
I
dropped it like
didn't.
3 times in one day.
It was unbelievable.
You
It was
kept dropping that
unbelievable.
meme, and I like opening up my Instagram and I'd see like we hit like I don't know what it was. It was like 12,000. It was like 13,000. I'm like Jesus Christ. I'm like this is
Oh man,
unreal.
my DMs had never been so full during that time.
Oh, dude, I couldn't imagine, dude. I was getting hit up quite a bit, but I couldn't imagine yourself. I could
Oh my
not.
god,
I could
it was
only
wild.
I could only imagine how bad it. Like what you were sitting with like 50 DMs a day.
Oh, for sure. Now the DMs are more like, "Are we at the bottom yet? What do you think?" And my response is, "I have no fucking clue, but we're down 85, 86%. So
Yeah.
take that for what it is. I mean,
Yeah.
we could
No.
that doesn't mean we can't drop another 50 or 75%.
Yeah.
Absolutely. You need to be prepared for that to happen. But uh you really just need to hang in there.
Yeah. I mean, and that's another thing. Like if we get rejected here, um, then
Yeah,
we're gonna
right.
definitely go
Be
test 3K, and then
Yep, be prepared
1800's
for
the
that.
next 1800's really the next level. Yeah, and that's like literally 'cause if you bought now or you buy at 3,000, you could shave off 45% before you see another level of support. So that's something to keep in
Yep.
mind. The scary zone for me, I think, is anything below the 1800, because really the next support is fucking 1100, 1150.
Yep.
That's
Yep.
a, I think I have it. Yeah, 1163 at the top of 2013. So um, that's not a pleasant thought, but that's just something that's food for thought. So that's as bullish as things look right now, keep that in mind.
I mean, as much as as bullish as I am, you need to be prepared for 50% drops at any point in time, literally. I mean, it can happen in the blink of an eye. What do you think? You want to jump into Tim May stuff?
Yeah, we should jump on the 10 minute stuff. I have it open now. I mean this is it, but so this is old, 1988. This is before I mean, internet was on the cusp, I guess, but the few lines you draw it out were computer technology is on the verge of providing the ability for individuals and groups to communicate and interact with each other in a totally anonymous manner. Two persons may exchange messages, conduct business, negotiate electronic contracts without ever knowing the true name or legal identity of the other. And that's a big deal. Why? Um, you hear it talked about a lot in crypto is removing the middleman, and that middleman can be the bank, the middleman can be government. There's a lot of different things that computer technology has allowed us to do, and we're seeing with even with Bitcoin, is this internet money. You want to pay someone in London and you live in America, you can send them that internet money anytime and they'll receive it within minutes now. Um, and it's a real big threat to what our current system is with like Swift, which controls 95% of international transfers, and Swift is basically controlled by the U.S. Government. Um, so, any country, and I'm not saying what U.S. politics does is good or bad. I'm just saying any country U.S. puts a sanction on or anything like that, they can't do international transfers. Well, that just screws everyone in the country. So if their leaders doing something wrong, well, all the small businesses get messed up. All those people do. And it's not the people at the very top of the percentage of the wealth in that country that get, are feeling the pain. It's the bottom, portion of that country, the middle class, the lower income people that just get wiped out from these events, of not being able to transfer money.
Yeah, I mean, when when the Swift can pretty much exclude entire countries from the global financial system, that becomes a bit of an issue. And we're going to talk about that a little bit more with what's going on with Patreon, but that's when uncensorable money becomes critically important. And what Tim May is talking about here, I mean, he wasn't saying Bitcoin specifically. He wrote this in 1988, but the ability to transact between person A to person B without knowing them at all, and to be able to send value through the internet essentially without anyone being able to stop that transaction, censor that transaction, make it more difficult for that transaction to happen is extremely powerful. It's easy to gloss over when you talk about what are the 5 key points of Bitcoin. Like, that's super powerful that you can now do that. I can put up a QR code on this YouTube channel as an example, and nobody can prevent you from sending a $1 donation of Bitcoin to that address. Nobody can censor that transaction. Period. It's impossible, and we've never had that before.
Yeah, and that's it's the crazy thing about Bitcoin is how much it removes everything that, whether it's government or any kind of restriction on, people. It removes a lot of things. It's what's the best way to put it? It's neutral. It doesn't there's no bias to it. If you send money, it's going to that address.
Yeah, I think the way somebody had said it, it's an apolitical money, right? It has just controlled by no one. And
Mhm.
what you said there is a good point, and this was taken from the manifesto as well. Tim says these developments will alter the nature of government regulation, the ability to tax and control economic interactions, the ability to keep information secret, and will even alter the nature of trust and reputation. And that's super powerful because it really does alter everything. I mean, if you think about something stupid as buying homeowners insurance or car insurance, you cannot buy that direct from the insurance company. You need to go through a third party, and because of insurance regulations, and that's your insurance broker. So you have to go to Joe Schmo's State Farm agency to buy your policy because the government does not think you are smart enough to buy that insurance policy on your own. So they need and sell you that insurance policy and explain it to you, because if you have ever read an entire insurance policy, which I'm sure you have not, it doesn't make any sense at all. It's the worst. It's the absolute worst. You cannot understand it. You need a law degree and a 4-year degree in risk management and insurance to understand a homeowner's policy. It's ridiculous. So the insurance regulators have inserted themselves into that transaction, right? It costs money to have that broker involved in the transaction, and most insurance brokers are paid anywhere between like 10 and 20% of the premiums. So you could be saving that much on your homeowners or car insurance every single year you renew that policy, but you can't because state law requires that there's an intermediary making sure that transaction is going through, and it's supposed to be for consumer protection, but I'm not sure that it really is. I'm sure you can name a million other examples of third-party intermediaries that add little to no value but cost a lot for any type of transaction. Buying a home, another one. Title companies, escrow services, going through that whole thing. People make thousands of dollars when you buy and sell a home, and it's really just a contract negotiated between two parties. That's it.
Yeah, no, there is a lot of areas where middlemen, I mean, and a great example is just government services and fees and stuff like that, like the DMV, and there's just so many little fees that they just pick away at you at, and then not including taxes, and it's pretty crazy how when you look at the 20th century and the control of money, how much taxes have been levied on people, and they've been told they're good things, and you've seen slowly a decline in quality of life over time too. And why? Because people's purchasing power is being destroyed, and they're just getting more and more taxes, more and more, and that's why we're seeing the whole thing in Europe. People are I mean, obviously it's not just taxes for France, but it's a big deal. Like, that's why you see the middle class and there's other, and it's a complete, it's a political movement. It's not, it's people from the left side of the political spectrum, the people from the right, people from the middle, and they just don't like what's going on. They're sick and tired of it, and you're seeing it spread throughout Europe. And I think the EU is on the verge of basically collapse. And I would be surprised that around in 2028, but I mean it's falling pretty fast, like a lot faster than I expected it would.
Another thing that I found interesting when I was looking at the Anarchist Manifesto, um, just that it has the potential to drastically change economies and social interactions. Like right now, today, I think we do a lot of self-censoring, and you, you don't necessarily have to do that with a form of digital cash. And I think digital cash is just such a critical piece of infrastructure to have, because money makes the world go around. We don't really think about how many different facets of our life money touches, but when you start to think about everything that it does touch, and if you have an apolitical money, how much different it is when you choose to transact with your friend, neighbor, or anyone. And I was looking at the definition of crypto anarchy from Tim May's manifesto, and it's pretty interesting. It says encryption, digital money, anonymous networks, digital pseudonyms, zero knowledge, reputations, information markets, black markets, collapse of governments. And it's a powerful statement, and I know the collapse of governments is certainly a sensitive subject for those of us who have been heavily indoctrinated by the state. But these are the types of tools that the cypherpunks have been building for 30 years, was encryption technology and ways to keep yourself private and to transact with one another without any third parties having to butt in. And it's crazy to think about, but I don't think we are beginning to understand the implications of if Bitcoin is successful, what could happen. And I think anarchy is it's a bad word in this case, because people thinks it means chaos or a complete disorder, or
Yeah,
things going up in flames. That's not really what it is. It's just no ruler, that the humans are smart enough to kind of get along with one another. I don't think it's going to end up being that complicated. Just like when email came around and people were like, oh, all the people at the post office are going to lose their jobs. No, they're not. It's just going to blend in and move in with society. And, the postal service is still around today, unfortunately, actually, because I don't think that they do the best job in the world. I hope that gets privatized one day and is a profitable business for whoever can take that on, and maybe the government can stop doing that. But it's not going to be you know, a hell on earth. It's going to be a beautiful fucking place for sure.
yeah. I mean, and I think when people think, oh, I couldn't imagine life without the government, I'm thinking the
I can.
largest. You want to know something interesting? Guess what was the largest cause of death in the 20th century?
I have no idea.
Democide. Yes. What is democide, you ask? And I will go get you the direct definition, because democide is death by government. And so here's the direct. It is murder of any person of people by their government, including genocide, politicide, and mass murder. It is the largest count of death in the 20th century, where you look at war, genocide. You can look at Armenian genocide. You can look at what Stalin did to the Ukrainian people in the 1930s by starving them and nationalizing the farms for the good of the state. Um, and again, Stalin. I think Stalin was even a Time Magazine the Person of the Year too. I shit you not. I think like 1930.
39.
Oh my God. No way. 39 and 42? Oh my God. So here again, there's your mainstream newspaper promoting a guy who's just mercilessly murdering millions of people. Absolutely unbelievable. I mean, it just shows you the logic behind certain things. And I think one of the biggest things is World War One. Like Saifdin Amus, if I said it I don't think I pronounced it correctly, made a good tweet about the other day. What the Bitcoin standard is like. Give this book to your family, because it gives them an understanding of war and why it happened, and how the First World War really, although it came to an end, never really came to an end. You think about the continuous war you've had since then, like globally, and as Americans, we don't think about it because it doesn't affect us on our home front. But when you look at what was going on in Yemen, we look at Syria, when you look at Libya, you look at just around the globe. We're actually just the U.S. soldiers are getting pulled out of Syria now. I saw that Trump made a order about that, but like Afghanistan, Iraq, I mean we've been in Afghanistan for 17 years. There are kids that are going to graduate high school this year that were born the year that war started.
That's crazy. So
Like,
crazy.
um, it's like that's crazy. That's you think you think. I mean, I guess Vietnam was a long war for us because we really were in there in 1945 with the OSS, and then we had in the late 50s and early 60s we really started bringing in advisors. So Vietnam was a long time. We really weren't out till 75. But I mean, here again, here's another example of another Vietnam for us, where we're in Afghanistan for 17 years, and even there was like a post, an article there said, generals over there saying, yeah, it's not a winnable war anymore. We're just here. It's like, what the hell are you doing there? You're just risking people's lives for no reason. You know,
It's crazy because all of that came at a cost. You have to inflate the money supply in order to
trillions
pay
of
for that to happen.
dollars.
It doesn't. It's really easy. When I remember learning this in school and not thinking once about who paid for this war, like who where did the money come from to pay for all of this to happen. Um, it never crossed my mind. Why would I have thought about it? It was in a history book. Actually, scratch that. It wasn't in a history book. It was in a social studies book. And I don't know when in time it changed from history to social studies, even though they're the same thing. That's another rabbit hole you can choose to jump down if you want. Why they changed the name of history to social studies. I don't know. What was it for you in high school? Did they call it
It was
history
social
class or social?
studies. You get social
Yeah.
studies.
What is so? That's a good question. Is it history or is it social studies?
Yeah, I mean,
Like
you don't learn much in like general school. I even took like AP U.S. history, and I mean, we learn stuff, but you still really don't learn a lot.
you don't learn the truth. That's what I think.
Yeah,
That's a good point. You learn that George Washington was a great dude, and blah blah blah. I don't know.
and occasionally there'll be a teacher there that really, tries to teach students stuff, but it's not often. So it's, you really got here again, same thing with crypto. Do your own research, you know, spend your own time learning. That's the only way you're going to understand the stuff, whether you want to watch a documentary, read a book, go on Google. There's a lot to learn. And I think you don't know your history, you don't know your past, you're doomed to repeat it.
Oh, for sure. And I think that's a really good point. There's never been a better point in human history to be able to learn something. Like information's almost democratized. You can get on the internet now and look at any type of information you want for free. And people are giving away this information. You can listen to this podcast for free. I can't guarantee that you're actually going to learn anything, but you can certainly listen to us and then take one of these topics and take a deeper dive on this on your own and see how it differs from the way you thought that it actually worked.
If you really want to go down the rabbit hole, I mean, everything is at your fingertips. You have the internet, and even then, I always like books too. Books are great because you can go through, take notes, highlight. But I mean, you can look up any book, you can order it online. Um, like shit, I'm just getting books for Christmas. That's awesome.
Yeah, man.
That's where I'm
I'm just
at,
I'm
trying to
just
learn.
stocking up. I'm just stocking up on Austrian economics books on Audible, baby. It's the only way to do it.
I'm not a huge Audible person. I'm sure I'd like it. I like listening to podcasts when I do cardio and stuff like that. But I don't know, man.
It's it's tough. Me too. I don't know what it is. Maybe I just can't read. I haven't figured it out if I can't read or I just learn better from listening or watching stuff. And I think that's why podcasts and YouTube videos have kind of blown up in the last couple of years. I used to send people would DM me all the times. Oh, can you send me that article or this and that? And I'd send. They're like, actually, do you have a video that explains it? Because I'm not going to read the article. So there's like, which I do that all the time. I'd much rather watch the video or listen to the podcast. But um, ask for a copy of the Bitcoin Standard for Christmas if this gets out before Christmas, which it won't, but ask for it for your birthday if not.
Yeah. Or your Valentine.
Yeah, Valentine's Day for sure. That's a good point. I've seen there's been a couple of people are posting pictures on Twitter of like boxes of like 25 copies of the Bitcoin Standard and
Yeah.
of like to give out, and they're like stocking stuffers or hand them out at the office or whatever. It's good. I think if you were the guy who was giving out copies of the Bitcoin Standard in, let's say, in, all right, so the year's almost over. Let's say you're the guy giving out copies of the Bitcoin Standard in 2019. You're going to be the fucking man in like 2022. Oh, remember that guy who gave out the Bitcoin Standard 3 years ago? What a genius.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. One of the things, and um, that guy Paranoid Bull brings up, I was thinking is funny, um, is we have no clue where this is going. Like, we could see severe asset price valuation, across everything: gold, silver, stocks, bonds, you name it, just because of the way our currency system is and how much, manipulations happened the past decade. It's a scary thought. It is when, that's why, I hope we can normalize interest rates, but the reality is like there's so much debt out there that there's going to be just so many companies that go under and so much unemployment so quickly. Um,
I know when I look around, I do not think that one person in public is concerned that we are heading deeper like into a recession. Nobody is
nobody's no,
concerned.
the
The
public
look
isn't
on
there.
everybody's face is normal. Everything looks awesome, great. Like let's go to the mall, let's spend money, let's take out another car loan. I'm not seeing it yet. People
No, it's
don't
not.
think it's coming.
So the VIX literally just broke 30. Um, literally just broke 30 for the first time. But I mean, it looks ready to pop. It looks. I mean, I'm just showing you here. It's not an oversold territory yet. And then when you zoom out and you go back to '08, when you go back to '08, you realize, wait, wow, 96. Like that's So we haven't hit fucking panic mode yet. I don't know how.
Right.
I can't tell you how we haven't hit panic mode. Like when you look at the S&P here, like I don't know how we haven't hit panic mode. Like there's nothing healthy about that chart. And like shit, do we have to drop all the way to 2000 to for people to realize that shit, this is not.
I don't even know. I don't think so. I think it's going to happen after it drops below that because I think the break even point for a lot of people who are really long SPY or deep into their 401ks, they're just not even going to think about it. You need to
Yeah.
be so petrified for that to make sense. Like you just need to be totally petrified.
Yeah, no, it's like here again, there's so many boomers are talking about that retiring. So many people with, that are fund managers that have registered investment advisors, whatever. They have their clients all so heavy in stocks. Not that bonds are good by any means, but you're about to see a lot of pain. There's a lot of people that need to unwind positions. You know, it's not it's not healthy when people don't like seeing losing a lot of money. And I had a family member recently talk about their portfolio. Mentioned like to my um, mentioned that like wow, she lost a lot of money in October. Like October and November. Think about how many companies shed 30, 40, 50% of their value just in weeks. You know, and so when your portfolio drops, when your equity portfolio or whatever, drops 20%, that's a big deal. That's a lot of money. When you've been, building it for years, you think about compounding, and then it just gets shaved away like that. You're like, oh, you don't expect it. People don't expect it.
Not at all. I mean, honestly, I think it's going to be super scary. Let's say this continues and plays out for 24 to 36 months. Anybody who either just retired and is, hoping to survive on a government pension or even 401k or anything, and Social Security will be in big trouble. I think they will be going back to work shortly if they can find a job. It's scary.
Yeah, no, it's something that definitely has to be on your mind. Like I mean, obviously older people, but even as a young person, keep in mind that shit is going to hit the fan, and it's going to be at worse than '08. So there will be consequences for this. Jobs are going to disappear. Like I'm 23. A lot of my friends just graduated, and it's like I'm thinking like shit. A lot of them just aren't ready to realize that there are going to be no jobs in like a year, 6 months, or their position they have is not going to be there. And I think one of the biggest things is I'm really keen. I know we've mentioned before. See what happens to colleges in America, at least in America. I want to see how many universities go under in the next decade, or how many universities don't field enough students where they start cutting people. You know?
Yeah, I think within the next mm, decade or two, it will look funny if you have a college degree on your resume. If you're born today and you go to college in 18 years, I don't know that employers are going to look that closely at you. I either think it's not going to make a difference, or everything is just going to be so different that um, any schools will be very specialized and focused on particular niches or trades or what have you. It's not going to be
Well, think
like
about it.
nobody's. I don't know. I don't know. I got a business
Doctors,
administration degree. Like,
lawyers,
yeah,
engineers, certain things where, obviously need someone to talk you through theoretical physics or something ridiculous like that. I get that. Something to think about.
yeah. I wonder if we'll see more of like a like if you're. I'm trying to think of the way to say this. I wonder if you're going to see more for-profit education in the future. I have a feeling we might.
I mean, it's definitely a possibility.
Because the public colleges, public institutions, it's not going to make sense. People aren't going to continue to take out hundreds of thousands of dollars in loans to then make 35 to 50 grand right out of school. It's not going to happen. And just now, within the past couple of weeks, I've heard of a few people actually losing their jobs, and they're having a much more difficult time finding a replacement job than they did, say, 2 years ago. That they
Hmm.
they they had multiple job offers. It was no big deal, and now that's starting to slow down. So I don't know if anybody else has similar experience, if they are currently in the job market and struggling, and if so, I wonder if this isn't the beginning of that struggle.
Yeah. It's definitely a scary thought. I mean, dude, look at this. I'm sorry, this is a little off track here, but look at that Sirius XM chart. Um, satellite radio in the 2000 peak, tech bubble. It's a 24 billion market cap right now. Assuming it had similar shares, I can only imagine its market cap at $69.
I mean, here's the thing. Do you know anybody who uses Sirius
Yeah,
radio?
yeah. No, I actually have it in my
Interesting.
car, and I know people who have it in their car. A
Do
lot
you?
of new cars, yeah, a lot of new cars come with it. So, um, and some people like it actually a lot. I mean, actually, it's pretty good. Honestly, like, sure, it's good to have like, having Spotify or having podcasts is nice, but like when you can just go through different news stations, whether it's like BBC, Fox, CNN. I'm just saying, like, you can go through a bunch of different news stations. You have a bunch of different music channels. So there is stuff. It's not bad, actually, especially for long drives, because you can lose cell service easily in areas.
That's true. Yeah, I wonder. I know when I had bought a car a couple of years ago, and it came with a free year of Sirius, and it was great. I loved using it. It was awesome. But I definitely enjoyed it much more as a free service that came with my car for a year than something that I would pay uh, a subscription for, or annually. Especially now that Spotify, Pandora, and podcasts are a lot more prevalent and free.
Yeah, they're free,
If
and
you use the free version, it's tough to beat. It's really tough. The
no,
content is getting so good from individual content creators that you know
yeah.
it for Sirius. I don't know how. Do you remember how much Sirius paid? What is his name? Um, uh, Howard Stern.
Howard Stern.
I mean, Sirius paid Howard Stern. I don't know how many millions of dollars for a contract to be on
Yeah,
Sirius. I mean, that's crazy. Spotify pays zero to people who want to put their podcasts on there, and they could be the most knowledgeable fucking person on whatever topic their
yeah,
podcast is about, and you're getting all that information for free.
yeah.
That's it. The game has really
Changed.
changed.
Oh, it has
It's just
100%.
so different. My dad's a perfect example. He loves buying courses online or whatever. And I just told him about podcast within the last 6 or 8 months, and he loves it. And
Oh,
he's
I'm
like,
sure.
man, I could have saved a ton of money. I was like, yeah, man, the game has changed. It's so different now. People are learning to monetize in new ways. If they can give out awesome information for free, they can monetize it on the back end or with advertising or whatever. But you don't need to pick up a multi-million dollar contract with SiriusXM or anywhere else to get your content out there. You can just put it out for free, and the people will come.
Yeah, no, I agree. It's pretty crazy. Like a Joe Rogan podcast, for example. That dude's been doing a podcast since like 2009, 2008, a long time. And like when you watch the early version, it's just him being a stoner on there, just talking to people, and it's just but to what it's become today, it's just absolutely insane. You know.
Yeah, right. I mean, probably like the Beef and Bitcoin podcast. It might be trash right now, but hopefully in a couple of years we're crushing it. But it's the same thing. You can go and put out any piece of content you want for free to anybody, and if they like it, if you're doing a good job, you'll continue to grow. And we this that's brand new. This is brand new.
Yeah, I know. It's like we're here early. Like I know, as we said earlier, like even just looking back to our first podcast, we're doing much better.
Yeah, I mean, and we can be fully transparent here with our followers here. This is the best time to be doing a Bitcoin podcast. It's the bear market. Nobody cares anymore. People are scared. This podcast is going to get so many more viewers, followers, attention the next time we have a bull run. That could be 2019, 2020, 2021. It doesn't matter because we're still going to be here talking shit every week, week in and week out about what's going on in the world. Let's talk about Patreon a little bit
Yeah.
and uncensorable money. So it looks like I haven't uh, gone too deep down the rabbit hole on this, but it looks like Get on Gab has they're going full Bitcoin maximalist over here.
Yeah.
They are, and a lot of people are, and it looks like Jordan Peterson and a few others are looking to leave Patreon and start up something else to get funding. So if anybody doesn't know what Patreon is pretty much an ongoing Kickstarter campaign with one key difference. Rather than getting paid once off per project, artists or content creators are paid from their patrons, you, me, or whoever signs up as a patron, to continue on an ongoing basis. So if I want to, if we had a Patreon page for the Beef and Bitcoin podcast, you could go and sign up there and give a weekly or monthly contribution of whatever you wanted to help support the podcast and make sure that we continue to, it covers the cost for us to continue making this podcast. And people with potentially political views that don't necessarily align with either Patreon or the banks that work with Patreon are being removed and deplatformed from Patreon. And there's a lot of people who literally make a living on Patreon. They put out content and they have a couple of thousand patrons who pay them on a weekly or monthly basis for them to continue making that content. And they are losing access to those funds. I mean, right away, instantly gone. Like business is closed. And that is, it shows you a couple things. It shows you, one, they need to use Bitcoin, but two, that fiat is the basis behind this whole thing. So if you have a bank that can just shut you down right away because you're talking about something that might be too sensitive for certain listeners or not necessarily conform with what mainstream is talking about, that really sucks. And I think a couple of the big Patreon folks are trying to come up with a competitor. But here's the problem: if they're going to use fiat, it doesn't matter. It's not going to work anyway. And Gab has really taken the lead here with, they're working with BTC Pay Server. They have everything set up, and look at that. They're going to be accepting Bitcoin payments because they realize how important free speech is, and being able to send money to anyone on the planet to help them with whatever they're working on, regardless if it's good, bad, or indifferent from what your state believes. You should be able to do that. That's the part of free speech, for you to send money anywhere on the planet. Nobody should be able to stop you from doing that. But the only way you can possibly do that today is with Bitcoin. Period.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy to see that going on Patreon. And I used to think Patreon was pretty cool like a couple years ago when I started seeing YouTube creators, content creators putting out that. Like, okay, that's pretty cool. Because, there's a lot of people that really enjoy YouTube content and watch it like daily over TV. And you'd see people post their Patreons because YouTube was cutting their ad revenue or whatever. And now Patreon's just, whatever reason, people who don't align with their political views, cutting them out. And like no one sees this as an issue. They're a payment platform. And you can say, well, but this is the issue with, this whole they control the means to funds. They are the gatekeepers, and that's the issue. When you have gatekeepers like that, they can decide who gets paid and who doesn't get paid.
Yeah, it's really scary that that's possible. Somebody else can completely just cut you out of the financial system. Period. I've heard of people who've gotten their Facebook pages removed who ran businesses from there, whether it be consulting services or whatever, and they had 200,000 followers and they were making $100,000 a year, and then boom, that Facebook page is closed, done. No way to get paid anymore. No Patreon, no nothing. So these people are essentially just being erased from the internet. I mean, it happened to Alex Jones like a bunch of times. I feel like he's just been completely removed
Oh, he's been just
from
deplatformed. He's probably one of the more
deplatformed.
Him and Milo
Yeah,
Yiannopoulos. I think him and those two guys are pretty up there.
yeah. I mean, regardless what you think about them, I mean, I understand that they can sound nuts to some people, but that's kind of the whole point of free speech. I mean, it's hard. There's two sides of this argument. One is, as Beauty on always says, Twitter, the platform of Twitter is their property. They can choose to allow whoever they want on it. But on the other side, it kind of sucks that if the powers that be running particular enterprises can just remove you from that platform, something that you use to make a living. That's very powerful. It's a problem that is in search of a solution.
Yeah, no, that's a big deal. And I'm reading a little article here. Jordan Peterson claims he's building an alternative to Patreon. So apparently
Yeah,
that's going on.
yeah. I hope he's going to use Bitcoin because if he's not, it's just not going to work. Period.
Yeah, if banks do decide, yeah, that's obviously
Yeah, I
a
mean,
big factor.
so what's he going to do? He's going to set up a new website. He's going to need to integrate with Visa, Stripe. He's going to need to get a bank account from somewhere. I mean, if you think about all the things that you need to set up an online business where you are going to get paid and you are dealing with the legacy financial system, you can kind of forget about it. Like it's over once you're on that list, and that's kind of it.
Yeah, no, it's an interesting point, and as I've said before, Paranoid Bull on Twitter has made that point about, you know, crypto got so ridiculous last year that people would believe anything was going to be the future of money. And that just shows you how bad the system is. When you just step out of everything you care about, lose all your biases, and you just step back, whether you're a gold bug, whether you're a Bitcoin maximus, whether you're a cash, king, step back and look at what happened in 2017 with all the markets peaking. Look at the insanity. I just zoomed out for the Bitcoin monthly chart. People would believe anything was money. That shows you how broken the system was. Bitcoin was created out of the broken 2008 2009 global financial crisis. The system was supposed to fail then. We were supposed to fail. We were supposed to have a reset, but instead there was a bailout of $700 billion. Companies were allowed to stay afloat, and they were, basically the treasurer, or secretary of treasury, had 6% preferred shares. So they just, they eventually got paid back, but the banks were allowed to do whatever they wanted with the money. So executive compensation, you name it, they did whatever they want. And a bunch of other companies obviously got bailed out. And here, all these people losing their homes, losing their jobs, families getting split up because they can't afford anything. And right or wrong, not letting the system fail then, all it's done is kick the can down the road. And that's why, the one thing that worries me with Bitcoin, and I don't mean, I guess I'm countering your side with this, crypto humor, is we are still so early in Bitcoin. It's such a small market cap when you compare a $100 billion market cap to the 178 trillion global GDP, or 78 trillion global GDP. That's a drop in the bucket. Um, and when you look at just the outstanding monetary supply, that's so much to capture, and that's so fast that, and sure, Bitcoin has obviously moved from parabolic advances or whatever, and historically, but that is just such a large number. It's a crazy thought. And it's, as we see governments, lose power, we're seeing it in France right now and other government, that's going to play an effect. Will Bitcoin be used? Will there be currency crisis? Will there be loss of faith in these governments? Who knows? There's a lot on the plate here that's going to happen, especially in 2019. I think especially if we see another reset like 2008, people aren't going to be happy. People are going to be like, why are my wages stagnant? You know, why did I lose my job, etc. So there's going to be a lot of factors playing into this. Um, and who knows? Maybe all assets overall lose their valuation because the dollar is so skewed because we printed off, or the Fed's balance sheet got to 4.1 trillion or 4.2 trillion, and now the Fed's been taking off 50 billion a month, or yeah, 50 billion a month, or just taking off their balance sheet. So that's just getting taken out of the monetary supply, and that has an effect.
I mean, Bitcoin right now is a drop in the bucket. It's $100 billion market cap. That's nothing. I don't know what the highest market cap it was in December 2017, maybe like 600 billion or something like that. And to be honest with you, I don't think that anyone is really going to start paying close attention to Bitcoin until we one break through that just $1 trillion market cap level, and then as we start to inch closer and closer to the market cap of gold, and then at that point you don't have a choice. Like, you have to start paying attention at that point, and that's when I think more people will start to believe that, okay, Bitcoin maybe is not going to go away. It wasn't just a fun experiment, and you can certainly make the argument right now that it is just the craziest monetary experiment in human history right now, and we're watching it unfold before our eyes. But I personally don't think that it's going to go to zero. I think every 10 minutes that a new block is made, it becomes less and less likely that it will go to zero. You have that Lindy effect that Nassim Taleb always talks about. So I think if Bitcoin survives another 10 years or 5 years and finally has a market cap into the trillions, that's going to change a lot of minds. And I actually asked that question to my followers. If you're a no coiner, you just think this whole thing's going to end. At what price does Bitcoin need to get to for you to say, all right, fuck it, it's not going away. I guess it is going to be around. And some of the answers I got were pretty interesting, but I think I hope that day comes in my lifetime. But what a better time than now, to be honest with you. If we're about to start unraveling globally, I that narrative starts to make a lot more sense of why Bitcoin sticks around in the next couple of years.
Yeah, it's definitely a very interesting thought, to see this happening. I mean, you're looking at companies like Apple just shaving literally 40% of its value in a matter of weeks. And I just bring this up because it was the $1 trillion company. It was a big deal, and now it's shed $400 billion probably, almost. It's shed over 300 billion at this point, so it's ridiculous. And it's a scary thought. And, we're watching this happen, and I think it will have effect. And it'd be interesting to see it. If Bitcoin can survive. As you said, at what point do people start to accept it? More and more, because that will have an effect on fiat currency in general.
Yeah, it's somebody gave me the example that it's just like the internet. 10 years, the internet, this is great. It's the 90s. People want to get on AOL, blah blah blah, and then now you couldn't picture life without the internet. It's a part of everybody's everyday life. You have my grandmother is 84 years old and has a cell phone and FaceTimes with me on the weekends. And she knows that the internet is going to exist. It's a normal thing. It wouldn't be out of the ordinary for you to think that the internet will always exist forever now, since we have it and we're using it. And I think it's going to take time, like anything else.
Yeah, no, I mean, we wouldn't think. I mean, I was obviously born in the 90s, but like when you think about, growing up to the internet age there, 96, 97, you think, oh, wow, is this going to be around in 20 years? And 20, lo and behold, 2018, we're sending Snapchats, we're on Instagram, we're on Twitter, we're on all these different social media, on websites, we're on 4G LTE, whatever you want to name it. It's interesting.
Yeah, it's wild times for sure, man. I think the last decade was absolutely unbelievable, and the next one's going to be even crazier.
Yeah, I can agree with that. We are heading for interesting times.
Hopefully, greener pastures if you're holding satoshis, but if you're holding equities, I don't know. The next 12 months could get a little messy.
Yeah, it could. It's definitely, it is something I don't like to think about, but I've been telling people in my family for a while. I'm like, yo, uh, I've been telling them since the start of 2018, but really I was saying in September, I was like, this is it. Once we like October came around, I was like, yep, that's it. And you can look where we are now and all the indexes. It's not pretty. Nothing looks good. Just yeah, it's gonna be very interesting what happens here in the next year. If Bitcoin does actually take over or whatever, that's gonna be very interesting.
Yeah, I think if it does, it'll be slow, and then it's going to happen all at once. And what I really want to see, and I don't know if this is going to happen, is you're going to see more of those larger institutions start to get involved in 2019. And I think the reason why they're not right now is because the infrastructure is still being built. I mean, there's a really good chance that Backed doesn't get launched in January of this year, even though they say it is, because they still need that SEC approval for the ETF. So, I mean, I don't know. Stay tuned. That I hope that happens in first quarter of 2019, but don't be surprised if it doesn't, and don't think it's just all crazy FUD. This shit will take time. We're going to see the financialization of Bitcoin, but it's certainly not going to happen overnight. I was trolling through Twitter the other day, and somebody was like, "Yeah, I've been hearing about the Bitcoin ETF since 2013." So they've been talking about this shit forever, but um, we really just need to be more patient and let this play out.
Yeah, it's gonna be interesting to unwind here. It's as I said, decade of manipulation has consequences. Cheap money, as we say, has consequences. Malinvestment has consequences. Startups are gonna get wrecked. Amazon's wrecked. Amazon is a parabolic movement, and now it's just shedding value. Like it's um, I don't know. It's, I
It
keep
looks
saying that
ugly.
it just doesn't look good. It doesn't look pretty. 2 quarters of value just shaved off, and who knows? We have 5 days of trading left. It's going to be very interesting. It is, as I say, we are recording this during the midst of a financial collapse. That's as simple as put it. We are going to
Yeah,
keep recording these podcasts during the middle of a financial collapse, and we'll keep talking about it each time because it's happening right now, and no one seems to care, and it kind of pisses me off.
same here. But you know what? At the Beef and Bitcoin podcast, we care.
We
We care
care.
about you. We care about you guys listening. I mean, it sounds like complete bullshit. These two guys are idiots thinking that we're in the middle of an economic collapse. But every day that we record a new podcast, it becomes more and more clear that there's something bigger happening, and the whole narrative and the whole story of all of this starts becoming more and more clear. And we're not going to stop talking about it.
Oh yeah, I look at Microsoft quarterly bar here. That's an engulfing bar. It's literally probably going to be an engulfing bar.
Yeah.
Uh, and yeah, it just broke out here. Whatever. I don't know. Yeah, had something. I don't know. It's either way, it's not looking good. Um, you know, so as I said, there's lots of valuations that are just messed up right now because of malinvestment, and like Netflix is another great example. So it is what it is. We have been telling you what's been going on for a while now. So I hope if you're listening, prepare yourselves. Understand that, gain skills during this time. Understand,
Absolutely.
gain skills, maximize cash flow, look to increase income streams, and start learning. Invest in yourself. And that's the
Yeah.
same thing as a skill, you know, because a lot of people, jobs are going to find out very soon that you're going to need some kind of skill because jobs are about to just get wiped out. I mean, we're looking at Netflix. Netflix is going to eventually have to start cutting people. I mean, when a company like this just chops half its valuation off in a few months, that's a big deal.
Yeah. I wonder if they're going to start spending less on new content.
Oh yeah.
for I'm sure they already paid for all the 2019 content, maybe in 2020. So we'll see if their content really blows in 2020. If this is why, because they're not going to be able to spend as much on it.
Yeah, I
They're
mean,
probably setting those budgets right now.
I don't use Netflix that much, but when I do, I find they don't have that much content, to be honest. Like they really don't.
Yeah, it's tough. Like some of their shows are really good, some are shitty, some are like there's nothing good to watch. You can flip through Netflix and be like, man, like there's nothing to watch
Yeah,
again.
I can't tell you
And
how many times I've done
it's
that.
that's what I mean. So it's I don't know. I hope everything goes to some sort of like streaming pay per channel model. Somebody just needs to get that working properly, because there might be like four channels I want to watch, but other than that, everything I consume is on YouTube, and I don't. I I have a feeling that there's more people like me watching YouTube the majority of the time than anything else. So I don't want to pay $40 for the YouTube Live yet, but I have a feeling that's going to make sense eventually. There's going to be a price when that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, no, I don't disagree with that. I mean, I like YouTube a lot, obviously for its video. There's people that make good time. I don't like YouTube. I like the people that make content on YouTube. Let me rephrase that.
That's a good that's much better said. Well said.
Yeah, there's a lot of people that make really good content, and so I enjoy it. And there's people who just come out of the woodworks and they're really passionate about something, but they're not on the History Channel. They're not on Discovery. They're not on Nat Geo, but they're just making really good content. Was there anything else you want to cover?
No, I think this was episode 5 turned out pretty well so far. I'm gonna jump to editing. Thank you guys for sticking
Thank you
with
very
us
much
for this.
for listening.
Yeah,
I think we're at hour and a half. Whoops.
All right, well, we'll see what it ends up with after editing. But yeah, with that, anybody send us DMs, drop us a note, email, let us know what you want us to cover for upcoming podcasts. Make sure to follow Beef and Bitcoin on Instagram, Twitter, and YouTube. Check out Crypto Humor and Crypto Coitus on Twitter and Instagram as well.
And we're also on Spotify now. So if you're in a
Yes,
car
and
ride,
we're on Spotify.
so Spotify, Beef and Bitcoin, follow us there. We'll be posting there, and I think we'll be getting some other mediums soon too. But that should give listeners the ability to listen in car rides and stuff better. So,
Yep.
anyways,
Stay tuned, everybody.
Stay tuned. Have a good day.